back at another session of trade setup for the week ahead. I'm interested to see how things played out, what trades you took. But before we go there, let's just talk about what we saw last week. On the daily chart we had set up in the queues, we were at supply zone. We said if price bounces from the supply zone to earlier left gaps, we want to play it to the upside because we have a bullish momentum for now, right? We're consistently making higher highs, and we've broken that 78.6, which we removed already because we're out of that. So in the most recent run up, we're struggling making any kind of pullback. No entry signs given. So we said if it pulls back, we're entering to the upside. Or if it's doing what it's doing now, I want to redraw this lines. What we said is if it breaks above the if it breaks above the demand zone, the supply zone, we are going to take it to the upside. Right? That's what we said. So right now, that's exactly what is happening. We did not get this downside. It never came to close this gap. So this opportunity is not there. So we get rid of it. So there's two demand zones that we drew, here and here. The first demand zone was quite interesting. So if we look at dates, last week Tuesday, this is where the first demand zone gave us this entry actually. Right? Because I drew it way up here, it was kind of hard to see, but the first demand zone attempted to give us that entry. It was kind of hard to see because it did not use the whole supply zone. I keep saying demand zone today. So it kept using this whole supply zone. It did not really use it as support above it, but inside it maintained. So as soon as we got out of that, so we can say we got this. So this was our entry. This area was our entry because this whole supply zone held. And then we went after the next one. The next one, there was no stopping it. It didn't even care that supply zone was there. So it just went right through it. So I want to get rid of this first supply zone because that we took care of that. But the reason why I want to keep this one is I want to see what price does. It's attempting, so we don't need this. This is just for discussion purposes. So this was our entry. Right now, it's attempting to do this. Use this as support to go up. I think this is what it's attempting to do. We have yet to see, right? So if we get a nice hammer down here, a nice consolidation, and then we break above that consolidation, this is really a nice setup. But again, every week we talk about these setups. Unless we're looking for perfection, these setups are giving us the entries. It's exactly as we say, one or two, right? One side or the other is giving us those entries. Very rarely do we not get an entry. Of course, last week, because I drew this way up here, it's easy to miss this. But the idea of these zigzag lines is just a direction, right? This is what I expect to do. So this could be down here, it could be up here. So it's just an idea. So that's what happened in the Qs. In the SPYs, we are still below the 78.6. That's why we kept that retracement. But it has 3 times it has broken above it. 1, 2, now a third time. So we did not get this, right? I was hoping we get a small bounce up and then we go to close either this gap or we go lower to this demand zone. That is not happening, right? So this doesn't exist in the SPYs. The SPYs are really being supported by technology. That's really what's driving them. after Nvidia's reported even became uh, stronger, that technology is gonna get us out of this zone. Unfortunately, I want to get back down here for my long term, not for trading, right? For trading, it doesn't matter where it ends, right? But for long term buy and hold, I was looking forward to getting down here. Again, we still have this supply zone up here, right? We're in this supply zone. It's still possible, right? It's still possible that we go bounce from here, like just as you see here. Higher lows, higher highs, and then all of a sudden at one point it decided it wants to go lower. Right? But here we're in this higher lows and higher highs. We're not fighting it, right? We've said we're gonna swim with the stream. We're not gonna swim against the stream. So right now, we're waiting for this. I know I jumped a little ahead, but I wanted to talk about the setup that the spies and the Qs gave us. So with that, let me uh, come back to your trade. Did you take any trade?
No, I did not take any trades because, like you said, Beanie, I didn't. We didn't haven't the plans from last week haven't necessarily formulated yet. I think the Qs are on their way. It's almost tempting, actually. I almost took a trade this morning in the Qs because it did give you a hammer, not as pretty of a hammer, but a small hammer, and then it kind of came back down. So I decided to wait, especially after that gap up, gapped up, and then it retraced back to that and used that supply zone as support, and then tried to bounce off of it, and then kind of just started consolidating. So,
So at
I
this
said, let me,
hammer, is this at this hammer that you said you
yeah,
were tempted to take a
yeah.
trade?
You see how it opened, it gapped up, it
Yeah.
created that small gap, and then it came back down, used that gap as support, and then tried to bounce back off of it. But then it didn't really bounce that
Yeah.
nicely, and it didn't create that nice big wick that we usually like to see on the hammer. It was tempting, though. It was tempting to take a small position and have a tight stop, considering it was a short candle. So that was something I was looking at. But ultimately, I said, let me just wait until what happens pre-market tomorrow, and then decide based off that, see if there's maybe a little bit more pullback that it has to give.
Yeah. So let me just say a couple of things here. I, I am not fond of this tight stops that you talk about all the time, because your tight stops is just because you're scared. This is not a logical area. I don't want you to be scared when you pull the trigger. I want you to say, I need a logical area. If you pull the trigger here, your stop is here. At least your stop is this gap. At least. Not, if not here, it's this gap. And not really somewhere here to where you're not giving it wiggle room to. It needs to dance a little bit, right? You really need to give it that wiggle room. As you can see, like people who took a trade here or up here, if you make it too tight, you get stopped out, but it's going in your favor. So people who take
Yeah,
a trade here, the logical area is down here and never comes down here. So
yeah.
I really want you to get this idea of tight stop, right? Tight stop means two logical areas. I use the tighter one. Yes, I agree 100%. But tight stop to mean that I'm scared, so I'm just gonna go right below my hammer. That's where my stop is. I'm not going to encourage you to do that. Now, with that said, the second thing I wanted to say is always use your fibs, right? Area of value, area of value. We talk about area of value a lot. So here's where the fib retracement was. It never came down to 23.6. It just keeps going up, right? So if I redraw it, this hammer is really not at an area of value because it's so far away from any kind of retracement. If you don't have a good retracement, it is difficult to have confidence in your trade, right? This is where you say I get scared, right? So everything has been above the 38.2. So we haven't had any significant pullback yet, right? So if you're kind of scared of an entry, don't use a tight stop. Use smaller position size. Still use the same stops, right? Maybe you just do half position size, a third position size, whatever you're comfortable with. I think that the real big area that we missed, uh, because I did not make it clear that this was really a solid entry. When pulling the wrong one. When price was here, it attempted to pull back, and this was a supply zone here. So it stayed within that supply zone, and then it gapped up above that supply zone. That's your entry. That's your zigzag entry, right? So when you break this line, right, that this is your entry. This area is your entry. So you know, I always say green to green is what I like, right? I did not get a good green to green. That's why I didn't talk a lot about this trade. So when you decide to pull the trigger, you're looking for the zigzag trade, which it happened here: up, down, back up, above that previously identified supply zone. We take the trade here. So I want you to really keep thinking about those things. Your hammer here again, it's not bad. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad trade. I'm just saying it's really so far away from an area of value that maybe that's what scared you. We closed this gap, so it was right inside that gap, right? So we were right inside that gap when we got this hammer. So yes, but don't make it too tight so that you don't have wiggle room. But as an idea, fantastic. Now, if you say because it also used the supply zone as support, I take this trade, that's fine. Again, you give it some chance to dance around. Right? This entry, it was inside the supply zone, but it had room, so that's why it could continue to rise up.
Yeah. So maybe that makes sense. Yeah, and the stop I had was right around the journaling that I had was at 347. That's where I had set my stop loss, just at the tip of that candle.
Yeah, just too tight, right? Too tight of a stop here. Especially, think about it this way: if you get a green to green pullback, I am more confident to place my stop tighter in a green to green type of scenario than I am way up here in no man's land. But like here, I feel like if it wants to pull back, it's not just this a dollar or two that is going to pull back. It's going to pull back to the 23.6, right? So because I'm way up here, and way up here is chasing. I don't like chasing. Like this one, you can say it's the same thing. Like in this scenario, you can say it's also chasing. So we were above the supply zone. We used the supply zone as support, and we went above it. Yes, it's chasing, so that's why you minimize your position size, because we didn't get that green to green. This one is the same scenario, but this one is very, very far away, right? Here, we're close to it, right? We came close to it. Here, we're nowhere near it. That 23.6 is nowhere in sight, right? It's so far away. That's
Mm.
why it starts to get more and more dangerous. But like the news, everything is helping you to the
Yeah.
upside right now. So we have to take advantage of that. But I like the thinking. I like the thinking that you say, "Hey, I see a hammer. I see a hammer after closing this gap. Fantastic." Like the thinking is great. We're gonna get now. We're gonna get a nice, from here all the way up. Use this as support to continue up like this, or are we gonna attempt to go down? I don't want to play to the downside, right? Right now, there's no.
No.
I'm not tempted, not even tempted, let alone going to try that, right? So we have this gap here. What I would like to see if I'm going to see a downside is I want to see this. Again, both of these are trade to the upside.
Yeah.
Trade to the upside, nothing to the downside, right? Here, if the zigzag play, if we break above here, if we enter, I feel very uncomfortable with that position. We're so far away from any pullback. I prefer to sit on the sideline and wait for the next pullback, right? The market is going to be the market, right? I'm not going to miss any anything just because I did not take this trade. It's better to
Mm.
sit on the sideline than take a risk and lose a lot of money. And not trading is also winning. Yeah. Like as you get sophisticated in your journal, you write down, I did not have a pullback, I did not take a trade. Right? That's part of your learning. You have to explicitly write that down, not just the trades that you took, but the trades you intentionally did not take. I was asleep, did not
Mm.
take a trade. That doesn't count in journaling, right? Or I stepped
Yeah.
away for a meeting, I didn't take a trade. That doesn't count. But if you say I
Mm.
looked at my chart, I had my 2 minutes window, and I saw a trade set up far away from my area of value, I I'm not taking this trade. That one you write down. Right? That one is important
Mm.
because it teaches you to keep thinking about those things. Okay. Any other chart you looked at?
No, it's pretty much this was my main look. I've been trying to focus a lot more on just the SPY and the Qs lately. It
Yep.
seems to be the area that just offers the most consistency, and so I've been really focusing on getting better on knowing those two charts and practicing on those two charts.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, we're coming to supply zones
Yeah,
in both of them. In both spies and Qs, we keep coming to this supply zone. So eventually, when we get here, we also have some decisions that we need to make.
yeah.
Now, the spies in the latest run up, they have a lot of indecision, right? You see up, down. I
Mm.
mean, a lot of indecision, and even our when you look at the fib retracement, we keep breaking, right? Spikes keep from an area of value perspective, they give you a lot of opportunities. Let's start with
Mm.
this one. Let's really start down here. Right? When we see price drove up, so we start here. Price drives up, comes back to the 38.2, and then where does it go? It goes to that target one, right? The negative 272.
Mm.
When you move your fib again, it drives up, comes down to the green zone, and it goes to negative 272, negative 618. This one went all the way up. So we keep moving this. So here, not a significant retracement. Here, boom, we got our 38.2 retracement. And where did price go? If you had taken this trade, price is at almost at target one, right? Negative 272. So spies are actually giving us a lot of opportunities, but there's some quasi fear because we're not above that 78.6. That if you say, okay, Qs are going to help drive, I will take it to the upside, yeah. Otherwise, like I'm more cautious on spies right now because I think like the banks or any other uh, sector could bring price down, right? So that's why I'm more cautious on spies. But as a learning moment, you can see what happened. Every time we pull green to green, we're hitting that target, right? Green to green, the fib target. But yes, you use a 2x, the risk reward, but you're hitting your green to green. So this trade here, logical area down here somewhere, right? Somewhere here. That's why this is like kind of scary, because like to get to your two, like we're way up there because it's a lot of distance. But green to green, that's why remember I said green to gear. I'm willing to take tighter stops. So maybe I go a little bit outside of the 61.8. That gives me a chance for my two to be somewhere up here, right? And that aligns with the supply zone that's waiting up above. That aligns with that supply zone. My negative 272 exit is inside. Today we barely missed it, right? We tagged it. So you can even say, hey, I'm going to exit this position because I'm in profit.
Yeah.
This is where green to green, I feel comfortable to make it tighter. Like this is a logical area. Like the fib 61.8 is a logical area. 50% is a logical area. But when you're at 23.6, I don't like to make it too tight to where I have no chance, right? But green to green, most of the time I do it on the other side of the 61.8 instead of the 50%. And then that gives you a chance to play it to the upside. Otherwise, your stop is way down here, right? This is also logical. It's the last swing point that you saw, so you take that position. It's acceptable. Yeah. So the spies, I'm not too fond of the spies yet.
Yeah.
But, all right. So since we didn't take any trade, let's talk about long-term strategies, right? Or did you have any more questions?
No, I think that's all my questions for today.
Okay. So I like banks when they're giving us a buying opportunity, and I think SoFi is like a fintech, so I don't think it's going to collapse. In my view, I don't think it's going to collapse with the rest. So somewhere in the 5 area was a good entry for me. Of course, anyone who got it at 450 ish, nobody will ever get the bottom, but 450 ish is also a good entry. My target is not $7-8, right? So it's much more than that. So the 50 cents that I did not capture, I'm not too worried about, because to me this is a long-term play where I'm hoping to get back into this 24 area, right? It might be a year and a half. That's why I said long term. And this you can even play with options, because the options are not that expensive. You can buy a leap, a January 2025 option. The downside with that option, like it might cost you, let's say $1, so $100 to control 100 shares, versus $600 to control 100 shares. Yes, it's great, but the downside is if the turnaround doesn't come until mid 2025, for example, then those options go to zero. Like that's a downside risk you have. So that's why I prefer, when it's cheap like this, I just prefer to buy the stock. when I think of it
Yeah.
as a long term, right? I prefer to buy the stock. Now, if it's a $30 stock, I might
Mhm.
consider that separately.
Got it. And is that because of just all the news lately about how student loan repayments are going to restart now? I know SoFi is kind of involved as part of that, right? In terms of that debt servicing. Is that kind of why you think this is a good I mean, it was a good opportunity because it was like almost at an all-time low, but wanted to,
Yeah.
is that why what your interest?
Well, my interest started when we got to near all time lows, right? When we started to
Hmm.
get down here, that's when it picked my interest. And it's been driving down for a while now, right? It's since the beginning of 2022 when the whole market was going down and SoFi
Hmm.
started a little bit earlier than that. Of course, for 2 years it had made a nice gain from its IPO, uh, but like then into different parts of credit plays, right? Student loan and other credit plays. So it made sense to me when we're near these levels. And when I buy long term, I don't look at this chart every day. Like unless I hear some news, like I'm on CNBC and they talk about this, I don't even look at this chart because my goal is to look at it, maybe once a quarter or once every 6 months. And uh, uh, if it hits 24 before I look at it, I will hear about it on the news, right? I mean, everybody's going to be talking about it. Hey, here's a great bank, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where my interest is. So it's at $6. I think it's still a great buy. I
Hmm.
might consider even adding some more here. I think it's a great buy. But my love for PayPal is still there. I, I think that their play is going to be buying like the next growth thing in fintech. So I believe in the management, right? I think they're going to do something like that, uh, and so that's why I'm still in it. That's why I believe in it. That's why I added. I actually added below 60. I added more. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I've since they started going down here. I think I've doubled my position.
Wow.
Yeah, these are long
Yeah,
term
you're
plays. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you're definitely have a solid allocation on PayPal.
yeah, yeah.
What's your thoughts around Nvidia? I'm just so curious. I mean, they just blew it out of the water, out of the blue,
I
beyond
love
anybody's.
Nvidia. You
Yeah.
know, this is a fantastic company, but my problem is there's no entry area, right? Area of value, right? I talk
Hmm.
about that all the time. So right before earning, uh, let's see here. So green to so because so right before earnings, I was hoping they would miss earnings. That I was really hoping that because I wanted them to pull back in my green to green so I could add to my position. That didn't happen,
No.
right? That didn't happen. Of course,
Yeah.
in in October when everything was low, that was the time to add, or in December when you start to see, oh, it's making higher highs and higher lows. That's where it was time to add, right? All of those give you your double, but I wanted to keep adding, but I I added pullback. I think that's could be uh, viewed as a weakness, but me it's like opportunities. Like I find I make my money work somewhere else, where it gives me that entry opportunity.
Mm.
Right. So
Yeah.
and Nvidia is great.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fundamentals is also just in a good place with
Yeah.
NVIDIA.
Yeah. Meta is just tearing it. Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. That's another. Just if you had bought at that October low, you would be in a very good position.
yeah. Yeah. Now, Meta is one where I didn't think they were done going down.
Mm.
Like even when I saw this, I was not comfortable. So to me, it was a decision that I made based on what I know, right? So I'm not going to say, oh, I missed this. No, it was a decision not to take this trade, not to enter this position because I was expecting them to go down some more.
Mm.
Amazon has not done, I mean, that amazing yet. When you look from the lows, right? I think
Yeah.
there's like this earning that's coming up in towards end of June. I'm actually hoping that that gives us prices back down below 100. Right, that would be
Mm.
a good entry because retail, I don't know, they could miss.
Mm.
The retail side could make it difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true. What do you think about Google?
Alphabet. Look how well they are doing as well. But it's the same like Amazon, right? The price has not uh, recovered. Like so,
Yeah.
let's add a comparison. I want to add a comparison. So you see how Microsoft is coming back near its all-time highs,
Mm.
but Google is far away from its highs. Right? So there's a significant difference on how much it's recovering.
Yeah.
Look at Amazon, even worse. Right?
Mm.
It's far away from its high.
Yeah.
But I like these because these are opportunities, right? I like the next dip you see. Like if you didn't take this dip, you find the next dip. That's buying opportunity because they have room to grow. Right? Good
Mm.
companies, they have room to grow.
Yeah.
Apple, Apple is just let's remove this extra ones. Apple is even I think it's doing slightly better than Microsoft. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's giving you a much better return.
Mm.
So my Apple position is happy. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Both Apple and Microsoft positions, I don't complain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. Um, they're saying Apple is going to have a pretty big announcement coming up here. I think pretty soon around just the general AI VR um, space with their I think they're calling it like the Apple Glass or whatever that the name ends up being, which is like a wearable headset, kind of like Meta's Oculus. So it's been interesting, I think, to see what impact that has, especially since Meta has been kind of stepping back from the VR um, space a little bit since they've gotten really beat up in the market.
yeah. When will they announce? Because usually in September is when they announce products.
They said it's going to be in the summer. out of their normal cycle, which
Okay,
is
so if it's out of their normal cycle, I wonder if they will announce it during their next earning, right? Which is right
yeah,
when summer
possibly.
starts.
Yeah, it's definitely
Actually, it's
possible.
in July. It's in July, so which
Okay.
makes sense. Yeah, I'm looking down here, but it's actually in July. So even
Yeah.
Amazon earnings, I think it could be also in July. Yeah, it's in July.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, it would be
yeah, because
interesting.
yeah, they're saying it's because it's such a risky product, so they want to get it out of their normal launch cycle just to get it in front of the consumer and see what kind of feedback they get, which is interesting way to tackle it.
Well, I think so. If I think about that, why they would do something like that, it's not only to get ahead of the consumer, it's also to separate their bread and butter from this announcement. If they wait until
Yeah.
September and announce it together with the new iPhone or the new iPad, whatever they have coming out,
Mhm.
it might dilute it. Right? It might.
Yeah.
It might skyrocket it, but it might dilute it. So that could probably be one fear factor.
Yeah, definitely makes sense to do that. I think Google kind of did the same thing with their AI tool.
Yeah.
You know, instead of calling another Google service, they called it Bard, which is a very outside of the usual marketing name.
Yeah.
So definitely,
Yeah. Then they need it to be different.
yeah, just to separate it from their core services, so that in case it doesn't work out,
Yeah.
then their main products don't get the damage as much.
Any other ticker?
Um, no, nothing else comes to mind. Honestly, it's just been kind of interesting because I was kind of expecting some pullback or some major correction to start at this point. People are saying maybe later in the summer, but it's also looking like a bull market almost.
Yeah.
The way
So
we just
the sell in May idea, like the
yeah,
sell in May walk away, did not happen. May
yeah,
has just been tearing it up.
yeah,
And you're right. It's currently a bull market. There's this debt ceiling that they're saying is getting a resolution.
mm,
Uh, we're hearing of some layoffs, but the side has cooled off. So until there's an impact to employment and inflation, like negative inflation impact, I think the
mm,
market is gonna keep going up.
yeah,
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 but
definitely.
be mindful. Be mindful of every time we get to a supply zone, I'm like cautious,
Mm,
right? Yeah, like cautious,
yeah,
but it's because of trades, right? I don't want to give back profit. So if I am in a position and we
yeah,
get at, and if the price doesn't slice through it, if it touches
mm,
and starts to bounce back, time to close the position, take my
yeah,
profit, and look for another trade.
mm,
Yep.
yeah.
All
Well,
right.
excited to see. It's gonna be an exciting week this week. So
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see how the rest of the week plays out.
yeah,
All right. Let's wrap it up for today then.